Everything is Awesome is part of Courts and Parts, a podcast network featuring pop culture, TV, movie, and geek podcasts. Check out some of our other shows, like TV Ate My Brain, Let's Chat with Revelin Friends, and Podstalgic at courtsandparts.com.
Awesome. Just tell people they're awesome and mean it.
Awesome.
Did you have an awesome time? Did you drink awesome shooters and listen to awesome music and then just sit around and soak up each other's awesomeness?
Awesome. That was awesome.
You guys are awesome.
No, you're awesome.
No, you are awesome.
Sir, you are awesome. Seriously.
Awesome.
Everything is awesome.
Welcome to this week's edition of Everything is Awesome. I am your host, Kevin. This is a show where we sit down and talk to awesome people about awesome things. And while current Kev is anticipating and prepping for his 100th episode of Everything is Awesome, by the time you're listening to this, we've actually already recorded that episode live at Amalgam Comics and Coffee House. I'm sure it went great. Big thanks to Amalgam Comics and Coffee House for allowing us to record there. Big thanks to Jeff Stormer from Party of One podcast for running a game for us. Heart Points Pod for being there. And Garrett Smith, Joe Gates, Dan Higgins, and Hannah Datz for being players on the Everything is Awesome Tabletop is Awesome edition. You guys will listen to that next week as we hit our 100th episode. But this week, we had to do something really special for the 99th episode. This is the final. It may not seem like a milestone episode for our guest here, but it's a milestone episode because this will mark the last time that we do an intro live as we record. We're going to be changing our format up just a little bit to we've done it for 100 episodes, so let's change it up a little bit, is my saying. So our guest this week gets to say that he was the last person to experience this type of intro. Coming from Chicago, he's a improv artist. I don't know what you guys call yourselves. We'll go with that. He's a writer for darknightnews.com, and he's also one of the first Dark Knights of the Roundtable that we did a few weeks ago for the Justice League movie. Please welcome to the show, Ryan. I know your last name now, Lauer.
Well, thank you, Kevin. Wow, I'm so flattered. I could have cut you off halfway through because I started to get an ego. So thank you for that. That was very kind. Very kind of you.
Well, Ryan, thank you for being on the show officially as a guest and not just part of a roundtable this time.
I'm excited about it. I'm excited. I like talking to you. So let's record it so I can listen to it later and I can really hate how I sound.
Well, yeah, and you're like on a podcast kick now. Like you were, so we did the roundtable a few weeks ago. I think that aired as episode 95 or something.
Yeah,
and you just were a guest on a Batman themed podcast, correct?
I was on a Batman on Film podcast where we talked about all the Batman comics from this year, the highs, and not really any lows when it came to Batman. So it was just for comic book fans and Batman fans. It was a really good year. And so, yeah, it all started with you, Kevin.
Oh, well, yeah.
You got me started on this podcasting thing.
Was Everything is Awesome / the Dark Knights of the Round Table your first podcast?
No, but yes.
Okay. Intriguing.
Yes. There we go. We'll just say yes. Why not?
Okay, fair enough. We'll take the credit at the very end.
Yeah, there you go. Everything is Awesome was my first.
There you go. And yeah, you are rounding out basically. You're the last interview of the first 100 episodes of Everything is Awesome before episode 100 is we're just playing a board game. I think most podcasts embrace what they do when they celebrate milestones. I tend to go the complete opposite. And for me, like, I wanted to have fun and play a game and just kind of have a silly time with some friends and some comedians in the Philadelphia area. So luckily one of my friends is a GM master when it comes to tabletop RPGs. He designed his own and he's running the game for us. So it's but like I said, by the time this airs, I had already recorded that episode. But me and you, as we're talking in the present, I'm nervous as heck about it because it's 4 days away, maybe 5 days away if I do my math right, and I feel like I'm not prepared at all.
What? Oh, come on. Come on. You can just roll with it. Just press record.
Well, and that's the beautiful thing about having, like, doing it like my normal live show. I do like a late night shtick where I come out and do a little monologue, and then I have my Andy Richter next to me, and then we bring out a couple guests and a comedian or a musician to round out the night, and then we take it home. So there's that one has prep. This one, my buddy Jeff Stormer from Party One, he's doing all the prep because he's running the game for us. I just have to show up and try to be funny, which is going to be a tall task because literally every other person that I named that's part of that panel of players, they are comedians or improv comedians in Philadelphia.
That takes the pressure off of you then. All you have to do is just react to them and just giggle.
Yeah, because I'm not trained in anything, not even podcasting. So, so it's a little nerve wracking to be surrounded by funny people, but that's what I do. That's what makes Everything Is Awesome late night / live shows so successful. Is I just make sure I pack it with a lot more talented or funnier people than me, and then everyone goes home happy and laughing.
I think you've cracked the formula.
Most of my formulas involve me having very little talent or doing very little work.
Stop it, Kevin. You're a talented man. You're talented. I believe in you.
At least ambitious, at the very least.
Yeah,
and consistent. So I want to, before we get into anything, we started talking minutes before we hit record. I was like, no. Let's talk about this because this episode airs I guess the week before Christmas, this whatever that was, the 21st I believe is when you're hearing this. The 20th is when people are hearing this. So you were just talking about the Krampus movie from a few years back with who was it? Not Adam Driver, Adam Scott. Okay, so how was it?
It's fun. So because the guy who directed this and wrote it, his name's Michael Dougherty. I think that's how you pronounce his name. He did a great Halloween themed movie called Trick or Treat. I don't know if you ever saw that.
No.
It is just like everything Halloween, great horror elements and like some dark comedy all into one. And so someone like myself who totally gets into holidays and loves the holidays, it was a feast for me. And then I found out that he was moving on to Christmas, but you doing Krampus instead. And I was quickly sold on that movie as well. And so I watched it for the first time, I think last year, and it was a hoot. And then now I just thought, hey, it's Christmas. Let's watch this again because I've only seen it once. So let's do it again. I didn't remember a ton of it. And it's also got Toni Collette in it. It's also got David Koechner in it. And then I forget what her name is. Oh, Allison Tolman. She was in the first season of Fargo.
Okay.
She was a cop in that. She's really good in it too. But it's really Adam Scott and David Koechner that kind of do it for me, aside from all of like Krampus and his little minions and stuff throughout. So I've still got just a little over halfway through it right now to pause so I could talk to you, Kevin. So.
Oh, well, I'm honored that you to put the movie to the side to be on the show. That is so I especially for Halloween, for the longest time Halloween was my Christmas.
Yeah.
And then having kids kind of reignited like what Christmas meant to me again. So I hold both Christmas and Halloween in high regards, and I try to. And I fail every year, including this year. But Halloween, October, from October 1st to October 31st, I try to watch one Halloween movie a night or one horror movie a night, specifically. Doesn't have to be Halloween. I think this year I got almost halfway through because at the time I was doing a well, you know what? Even in October, I think I was only doing the Zomcast for like a week or two before we'll say creative differences halted the production of that. And then Christmas, I try to do the 1st through the 24th, really, of movies. And I have only watched like 3 Christmas movies this year. But my kids, we were trying to find a Christmas movie the other night. So we're going through, like, Netflix actually doesn't have a lot to offer as far as like, I would say, like they seem to have a lot of like dopey kid movies, like Snow Buddies or whatever, like all the dog movies about Christmas, and like Hallmark movies. There's not many like, and I understand that they might not have Santa Claus or Elf or stuff like that, one of the mainstream ones, but they don't even have like anything that looks good or appealing. So we went to On Demand, Verizon Fios On Demand, and as we're searching through HBO, he's like, let's watch the Stork movie. And I forget what it's called, but it's a movie with storks.
Is it just called Storks?
It could be.
Right.
I think it's, I mean, it had movies, it had storks in it, and a kid, or I guess she was a teenager and an adult, but as a baby, she didn't get delivered because they lost her beacon or something. And she just, it was the plot of this movie is that the whole world is in on storks being intelligent animals and birds that they literally fill out an order form to get a baby.
Okay.
Now, at some point, what I think when this baby gets left behind and becomes like a adopted orc or stork, rather, not orc, that's a whole nother movie, I guess. They stop delivering babies and just start delivering mail. And so who knows where babies come from now at that point in this world. It's really, now that I think about it, a really bad movie. But my kids dug it. So we watched that instead. And I tried to get them the other night to watch A Muppets Christmas Carol. Because that's a great Christmas movie. But they hated it for whatever reason. Not enough Kermit.
Yeah, I think it's A Christmas Carol itself. I'm just not a big fan of. I get bored with any interpretation, any adaptation of that movie.
Interesting.
That, and I just watched because I love the Muppets, and I was like, if anything can sell me on The Christmas Carol, it's the Muppets. And I was still like, meh, except for Statler and Waldorf. And I get those two in anything, and it'll make it better. And so when they were included in it with their horrible jokes and the that was killer for me. But the rest, it's okay.
Yeah, and you know what? It's not even my favorite Muppet thing, but it's one of the movies I try to watch in my 25 days of Christmas.
Yeah.
But we only watched half of that the other night. But I did, while we were searching for movies on HBO, I saw Krampus was on there, and so that's a movie I'm going to try to watch between now and the 23rd, because the 24th is reserved for Scrooged. I watch Scrooged every year on Christmas Eve.
I saw that for the very first time last year.
Oh my gosh, really?
I know. I'm 31 years young, and it took me that long to see that movie. And it did not disappoint. I was very entertained. So that's a relief, because I'd heard enough about it that if you hear... Yeah. Sometimes it's just, you might as well not even watch the movie because it's not going to live up to expectations. And so I was kind of nervous, but I thoroughly enjoyed myself.
Yeah, and I mean, I really shouldn't judge because I'm 33, and there are plenty of movies that people are like, you haven't, like, mind you, I live in Philadelphia. I've never seen Rocky, and like that's like a huge thing to people. I'm
Sinner.
Well, here's my thing is like I don't really get the whole, like, I'm not into boxing at all. Now, I say this after whenever Creed came out, the year Creed came out, I saw the previews for it and I was like, oh my God, I want to see this movie, which means I think I need to go back and watch Rocky, at least the first one. So they're on my to watch list. But yeah, Scrooged was one that I think the first I probably saw at some point in like my earlier years, but the first time I remember actively watching it was probably within the last 10 years was the first, like the time that I actually sat down and was like, oh, this is the first time I'm going to watch this as an adult. And it's for the last, I'd say 5 years, or no, my son's almost, I would say for the last 6+ years, it's been my tradition to watch it on Christmas Eve as I wrap gifts, because I'm that last minute guy, but I do that as a tradition.
You can't mess with tradition then.
Of course not. So All right, that's enough Christmas talk for this week at least.
For now.
For now. Yeah, we'll see where the conversation leads us. There's so much I want to talk about with you.
Oh man.
But let's start with, because I get the feeling, are you originally from Chicago or no?
No.
Okay.
I am originally from a small town in Northeast Indiana.
Okay, and so not far from Chicago then.
No, it's a 3-hour drive.
Okay. So, what brought you to Chicago? Like, because I know obviously Chicago is a huge, maybe the biggest place for improv. And I know you dabble in that. Is that what took you to Chicago?
It is. So that's what, to rewind quite a bit. So I'm moved from small town Indiana to a decent sized city in Indiana. I don't know if you've heard of Fort Wayne, Indiana.
Yes.
Okay. So after I went to college there, and then I lived in Fort Wayne for about 10 years up until last year. And the show, Whose Line Is It Anyway? When that became a big hit on TV, I became an instant fan, and that's what introduced me to improv. I had no idea that this was a kind of performance. This was a type of, because acting throughout, like actual acting was just not really, it wasn't what I wanted to do per se. I kind of wanted to do stand-up, but it's like, I don't know how to even start. And then once I started to watch improv, I thought, what is this? And I started to research it, and I started to realize some of these greats from Saturday Night Live, not to mention a lot of people on Saturday Night Live get started in improv. And there's this place called Second City in Chicago, only 3 hours away. And I thought, if there's ever any chance that I can do this, I have to do it. And luckily, by just being 3 hours away, I was able to, with my girlfriend, take trips to Chicago and just stay. And we got tickets to go see Second City shows. And I was an instant fan. And I just thought, if I've got to just look for a job in Chicago, I need to get here so I can pursue improv and just kind of see if it's something that I like. And so interrupt me at any time if I'm just rambling too long. And I finally, while I'm holding down a full-time job in Fort Wayne, I thought I'm just going to take classes on a writing class online with Second City. And then I'm going to take every Sunday an improv class. So I would drive 3 hours Sunday morning to come take a 3-hour class here in Chicago at Second City, and then turn around and drive 3 hours back. Ooh. So I did that for, about 6 months in 2014. And I realized that I needed to stop because there was no progress on finding a job, because I was kind of being picky on a job too. But I couldn't keep doing it that distant, because by being a student, you could constantly do open, like, free workshops. You could participate in free shows with staff. You could get free shows or free tickets to go see main stage shows, which is like the Second City, the big shows that they put on. So I just thought, I can't go through this whole program commuting, because I'm not getting to take advantage of all the extras that could help make me better. So I stopped, but then I just constantly kept looking for any kind of opening. And my job in Fort Wayne was as a news producer at a TV station. So I was developing a writing background, and luckily, just out of the blue, I remember applying for it, but it was so quick, and I just received an email. It was in March of last year from this TV station that had asked if I was interested in the position, if I'm still interested, get a hold of them. So I did, and they put me through, and they liked me. I guess I was charming. And soon enough, I moved here, and I instantly looked at Second City, and I picked back up doing improv for the past year.
So, you're a TVD, you're a producer for a news station?
Now
Well, okay.
I'm a writer for a TV station of writing scripts and doing some background checking and research on I don't know if you've heard of the Decades Network.
No.
Have you heard of Me TV?
Yes, I think so.
Okay. So the broadcaster network that owns Me TV also owns Decades, and Decades is only about 3 years old or 2.5 years old. So it's still really new. And that's just Me TV's it's their big station, but they have a couple of other stations, and Decades is one of them. And the whole network is basically a blend of history and entertainment. So a lot of the approach is on this day. So our programming each day revolves around like certain dates. So what is today? Let's talk about December 21st. Elvis Presley, for example. Elvis Presley sold out his first concert on December 21st, 1957. Or something like that. So that's our link to that specific day. And we kind of introduce that, give some background. All right, now here is a look back, a documentary based on Elvis Presley. And we kind of format a lot of programming around that. So I've always loved entertainment and history. It was a job that I never even knew existed. So the fact that I stumbled across it was awesome. And the fact that they liked me was pretty awesome. So that's kind of what I do. And I shit you not, Kevin, I have been paid to watch Adam West play Batman.
That's amazing.
Yes. I've been paid to watch Batman, and I've been paid to read Batman, and been paid to write about Batman. That is a dream job. And I wanted to go tell my boss at the end of that day, listen, do I need to quit? Because it's not going to get any better than this.
That's awesome. Because I got like the only equivalent I have to that, and there are certain people in my world that would argue that it doesn't count. But when I was a kid, my dream was wrestling, which I think really at its base level was more so a dream about entertainment, because I did it. I did the whole wrestling thing. But now that I don't do that anymore, it's still in my head. I was like, well, all wrestling is acting, really, at the end of the day. But I was able to get some formal training in, and I was able to move from the backyard to, we put on our own shows, and I got quote unquote paid, but the money went right back in, because I helped run the company. The money went right back into it to make sure we could do a show the next month. So that's my equivalent, is I was able, to the point where when that happened, I was like, do I just kill myself now? Cause I've accomplished everything I wanted to accomplish.
What am I supposed to do with myself
and
now?
Luckily I realized that there was way more to life than wrestling. And what saved me, I don't even know what saved me, but I broke my ankle, and that's when I started podcasting 10 years ago. Yeah. So podcasting kind of is what ended up being my new form of wrestling as far as getting entertainment out to the world, and whatnot. But I have I love that. For me now, when you say whose line is it anyway, do you mean the Drew Carey version or the Aisha Tyler version?
Drew Carey. I tried Aisha Tyler version. I think I was only able to catch parts of one episode, but my schedule was so wild at the time. I just never caught it on air, and then I haven't even searched to figure out how I can watch it. So
yeah, I think it's still on the CW, I think. But I tried watching it, but I'm kind of in the same boat where I just, now that I'm in my 30s, I have way less time to be watching TV. And when there's the whole Berlanti verse on the CW and then The Walking Dead and just all these other little shows that I like to watch, on top of hey, you know what? I want to be creative.
Yeah.
And then on top of, I need to, make sure me and my family can eat. I got to cut some things.
That's important.
Yes.
So good for
yes.
you.
So yes. So unfortunately, and I'm a huge fan of Aisha Tyler's. Like she is, when it comes to podcasting, one of the people that inspired this show, and I hope to one day talk to. There's three people that are like the dream guest for this show, and Aisha Tyler's one of them. Kevin Smith is one of them. And Aaron McGathy is one of them. And I lucked out that Aaron McGathy is someone that, like, out of the blue, I think I had one too many drinks that night, and I happened to like stumble upon her website and just was like, let me send her a message on her site, not thinking that she would respond. And like within a week, we had something scheduled, which is like, that's one of the big highlights of this show, is that this dopey show was able to get someone like, in my eyes, like as high profile as Aaron McGathy on.
Now you wait. We will get you Kevin Smith and Aisha Tyler. It will.
Well, that's the next 100,
Yeah.
is trying to get those guys on. And but yeah, so I'm a fan of hers. I think she's funny. I think she's talented, but I just never, I don't have time to get into it. I too, my introduction to improv was more than likely that version of Whose Line Is It Anyway? I think I remember as a kid, so I don't know where it aired, but the original UK version,
Yeah.
I think I remember my dad watching a couple episodes of as a kid, or with me as a kid. So I think that technically could count as my first, but I don't really remember. I remember the Drew Carey version, and I didn't know then, but it was I'd say probably about 4 years ago. I was like, I think I want to try improv. And the reason for that is like everything I do, this podcasting, I enjoy tabletop role-playing games, and wrestling are all just forms of improv.
Now, when you say wrestling, let's rewind a little bit. Did you get on board in the Attitude era?
Yeah, well, I started watching it. I mean, I as long as I can remember, I know there's a picture somewhere floating around as me as I don't even know how old I was. It was the era of Sting in WCW with the colored face paint, short hair, colored face paint. But I don't really remember. I grew up as a fan of Shawn Michaels right after
HBK.
Yes. So much so that my first backyard wrestling gimmick was Heartbreak Cat, wearing the red tights with the zebra print heartbreaks on them, having the motorcycle hat, the heart-shaped sunglasses, and the armband, like the I don't even know what they're called, but I guess they're technically arm warmers, but they're like the fingerless gloves with they're basically a sock with no tips to them, that you can stick your thumb out of a hole, and they were the zebra print things. And I watched it probably only for like 4 years at that point, and then Shawn Michaels left, and I stopped watching it for a couple years. And I remember my aunt called me and she said, you should be watching this because they just threw Mick Foley off the top of a Hell in the Cell. I'm like, bullshit. And it was right around there when that happened. DX was starting to get hot. And that's when I got back into it. So yeah, very much in the Attitude area is like, even though I do remember some older school stuff, I would say I'm more of an Attitude era kid when it comes to wrestling.
That's when I got in. I got in, let's see, right when The Rock was rising. So that's kind of that's what caught my eye. And it was right when Stone Cold went on a break, and that was heartbreaking because I just started to finally watch, and I'm like, where is he? And it took him so long to finally come back. And then when they were both performing at the same time, it was just, I was a diehard fan for a few years about it at that time.
Yeah.
We did our own bedroom and backyard wrestling moves, and it was, let's see, yours was much more professional than ours. Ours was not safe at all. And I specifically remember my brother and a friend and I up in his room, and we had a folding chair, and we were like teaching each other, this is how they hit. And my dad opens up the door and walks in, and my brother with this big chair in his hand just turns and looks at my dad. He's like, Dad, it's not what it looks like. And he's like, put the damn chair down. And
Yeah, it's funny because when we first started in the backyard, it was a very small group, and we were so I guess I don't know if nimble is the right word. We were so PG maybe is the way. Like we didn't even do suplexes or anything because we were on the ground. So like what we did was like throw each other into crap and throw punches and kicks, and we didn't really do anything beyond those basic stuff. So we would do submissions and stuff. And I want to say when we would do clotheslines, it would be literally I throw a clothesline and the person taking it would gingerly take that bump. It wasn't until we hooked up with, and we were we called ourselves the UWF, the Underground Wrestling Federation. This is going back to like, oh God, this is probably circa WrestleMania 15, I think it was the one that was in Philly. And that's right around there when that happened. And then a few years later, I started working. I was at Arby's, and I met this guy who did wrestling as well, and they were the TWF, the Trampoline Wrestling Federation, and they were able to do all those crazy moves because they were on a trampoline.
Yeah.
So we got talking, and we blended the two styles together for what we ended up calling FTW, which was the Federation of Teenage Wrestlers, later named Falls Township Wrestling when we went pro. And that the first time we did anything, we witnessed all these TWF guys doing suplexes on the hard ground.
Ugh.
And we're like, holy crap. And that was my life for a few years before we built a ring. And then we got shut down by Falls Township Wrestling, or by Falls Township, the township that we all lived in, or most of us lived in, which was that's actually what prompted us to change our name. A, we were all no longer teenagers. B, we wanted to stick it to the man of Falls Township. And yep. And so yeah, I mean, we were we did some crazy things, but we always were safe about it, I think, in a way. Like, you know, I say this as witnessing people who lit like I wasn't part of this, but people lit tables on fire. I was part of this, bashing fluorescent light bulbs over each other's head.
You did that?
Yeah. So we did very dangerous stuff.
Crazy.
But once we went pro, we stopped doing that. But we did. I mean, if you go on the Everything is Awesome Facebook page, facebook.com/realawesomepod, plug. There's if you go into the video section, there's two videos. One of me giving a chair shot to my best friend in the world in a match that we had together. That was an improv segment because underneath the ring was supposed to be a different weapon. I could not find said weapon. So I used a chair, and being that my buddy was he was into wrestling, but it wasn't his dream to wrestle. He kind of just fell into it. I thought he was going to throw his hands up because that's just what I expected Mike to do. He did not. And I swung pretty hard. And you can see that epic chair shot on our page, followed by another one where we do a nice little bit where I wrap. I think I hit him with something, and then I wrap a chain around my fist. I go to hit him, and then he blocks it and hits me with a tray or something. He hits me with something, trash can lid, and it's such like that hit. I don't like to brag because I wasn't that great of a wrestler. I was decent. I could hold my own, but there was never a better bump that I took than I did when I took a trash can lid to the head and bumped to the mat. I highly recommend anyone listening go watch those videos because despite them being crappy independent shows, they were amazing bumps that we both took.
That sounds incredible.
Yeah, and I mean, that's why, like, I'm sitting here and every chance that my guest, I give my guest to talk for more than a minute is when I start to like fidget around because my body is literally falling apart from wrestling on the hard ground to most of my pro stuff was hardcore. So I took a lot of beatings and whatnot.
The good old days.
The good old day. And it's funny because me and my best friend always talk, obviously, but we also, but the guy who I met years and years ago that helped basically, that bridged the gap between us being P words and them doing their trampoline stuff. Him and I fell out of contact, but we started talking within the last few months again, and we were all saying like, would we do it again? I was like, in a heartbeat. Like, give me 6 months to get in shape, run some ropes, and like I would do it one more time at least in a heartbeat. It's such a fun thing to do, and I know like my family and everyone that I knew like scoffed at it, like you're an idiot. But like the alternative was I was going to go do drugs, I guess. Like, so I think it turned out pretty well.
Yeah.
So yeah, and improv, like I love talking to people who are in it who do improv because it's something that like I'm so close to just going and taking a class. I just need to find I need to have like an open. All right, I know I have the next few months available to take this 101 class at Philly Improv Theater, and I'm hoping that's a 2018 thing that I get to check off my my bucket list. So, are you still doing like classes at Second City, or was that where you were doing classes at?
It's where I was doing classes, yes, and I have not taken any for a while. So their introductory program, I guess you could say, was 5 classes, and each class is 8 weeks long. And I completed that this year, and a lot of my classmates and we ended up putting on our own show the day before Independence Day, and that went over near perfect. I couldn't imagine how that could have gone any better. And the one of the theaters there in Second City, we sold out, which we highly contributed to people know they don't have to work the next day. So they're like, let's go see a show and let's get hammered. So I was like, yeah, okay, come watch us. And everybody drank and everybody laughed and we had a great time and everybody had a great time. And that was a blast. And then we put on another show the following month. Maybe went half as good. Maybe. And I kind of try to take that as a positive because you're supposed to have, like, if everything goes just about as perfect as you can expect, that story's boring. You don't learn anything. And it's always great to keep that ego in check. So we just thought it was a stroke of luck that first show and strayed from trying to get too cocky about it. But of course we felt really good and we were like, let's do this again. Let's hurry up the next time we can. Let's do another show. And then they gave us an even bigger theater and it seemed like fewer people even showed up and it just didn't click. And so then a few of us, we held our own like kind of meetings / get-togethers where we would do our own improv and try to make it more of like a communal, I guess, where we would each bring ideas and each bring kind of like lessons that we've read up on, whatever, and we had some books. We did that for quite a while, and then schedules and adulting got in the way. But luckily, I have a friend who he'd put on a show. He and a partner put on their own scripted show at Second City and asked I be part of the team to open. So in November, I was helping open for a show, and that was a blast too. It's about 12 to 15 minutes of just improv of where we just went out and it was just like you'd see of can we get a suggestion and then whatever the topic would be of what did you eat for lunch today? What's something you'd never want to see face to face? Who is the worst person of all time? And then, worst person of all time, Kevin.
Hitler.
Hitler, yes. And then that just sparks. We kind of go off to our sides. We instantly just start scenes. Hitler was our suggestion. So somehow that triggers either something directly or, you can start out. So the scene starts even of like, all right, Mr. Tarantino. So for this shot, and the link there is Tarantino, Inglourious Bastards, Hitler. Oh, okay, that's how they got there with that. Or or directly be, oh, hey, let's bomb Germany. That's a direct link there, And then it just kind of it snowballs into its own thing, and each time there's always nerves before any kind of performance, which is always great. I like being nervous. Those nerves. But then before you know it, you're like, wow, we've been up here for a while already. And then you blink and it's over. And it almost feels like right when it's over is when you're, I was just finding my groove. That went by way too fast. And that's how I know that I'm still loving it.
So, and I think I gravitate towards like improv versus stand-up, because stand-up seems like there's a lot of work involved. And as we established earlier, I'm pretty lazy when it comes to things that I do that I consider creative and entertainment. So improv it seems like it's, I don't want to say a walk in the park, because I know that there is talent there. I know that there is stuff that you need to like learn how to do, but like what kind of prep work, like I know like a comedian develops a 1 hour set. As an improv artist, what do you like? Do you develop a set that's like it's semi-scripted where you just have to fill in audience gaps? Like what's the prep work when you like have these meetings with your group?
So I'll rewind real quick and how you brought up with stand-up, because I've yet to try stand-up and I really want to, because sometimes I know even in my own little social circles or going out with others and such, I kind of, sometimes if I want to roll, I like in a sense having that microphone, but I know the challenge with stand-up is figuring out how to get into that position. And I think why I still gravitate a little more towards improv is because in stand-up, you're almost kind of banking that you're going to tell the audience, this is the funny part, and they're going to be receptive to that and laugh. Whereas with improv, I don't know what's going to be said. I don't know where we're going, and I don't know what parts are going to be funny. And somehow it's like almost as if audience gets to decide for themselves what's funny. And and we're kind of all just figuring it out together. And so as far as the prep work for that, I mean, the very basics, and I am so far from being any kind of expert or anything. I'm closer to rookie status than veteran status, but there are core elements and basics, that's the reason that you spend all this money to go to classes is for practice and learning basics. And the prep work is just knowing you're kind of trying to advance towards something with your scene, however it is. You're always saying yes, and then you always say and. I don't know if you've ever heard that like that's almost the phrase of improv is yes and.
Yes.
And perfect. Good job, Kevin. Wow. Bravo.
Class 1.
Yeah, class 1. You've done it. Gold star. And that just helps advance because it just leaves the door open. And as soon as you lean towards saying no or shutting down anything, you're closing that door, and you can feel just that vibe in the whole room of like, oh shit, now what? So just saying yes advances things, and you work toward things, and you prep no line beforehand. Big mistake. That you can almost see it in every show at least once, not the pro shows, but like classes that put on shows and everything. You can almost see it. Somebody's got this line that they're like, oh, I'm saving this. And it bombs every time. But I
feel like that would be me. I feel like, oh man, I got this line. I'm going to keep this in the back of my head for when I can use it. I'm going to use it.
And then you would, and there'd be crickets, and you'd be horrified, and you'd just go smash fluorescent bulbs over your head.
That's my comfort zone.
But there's different formats that have been created. There's certain styles, but then there's also people are creating their own. There's long form and short form. So for like a 15-minute set, so how I just said, coming out and who's the worst person of all time? Hitler. You start a scene and that scene goes on for 15 minutes and it just develops into this usually nuts scene that's just in repeating it like afterward or telling anybody about it. It's like, it never sounds like it's funny, but as it's happening, it just somehow you're given this ball of clay that gets molded into something great. And then there's short form, which is just a bunch of games, which, as you've seen on Whose Line Is It Anyway, a half hour, and they have all these different kinds of games.
Yeah.
Shows can be constructed in that way too, which the shows that me and my group had put on, we did something similar to that of games and that certain, hey, suggestion here for this. Okay. And that starts, and then it adds another layer. All of it works just as it just depends on the people and making sure that they don't F you over.
Yeah. And like the other thing that makes me feel way more comfortable with improv than it does with like doing stand up is that I feel like improv gives me the security of other people, or at the very least one other person. Like I love the idea of like doing a duo team with me and my buddy, or being a part of a group, whatever. But the idea of that, or standing up there by myself, trying to basically read a script at the end of the day, which I know there's a lot more to that for stand-up comedians. And it's because I'm trying to walk the neutral zone when it comes to comedians and improv artists. I know there's some sort of war between those two groups.
Oh, jeez.
But I know that there's more to it than just memorizing a script for comedians, but at the bare bones to it, like it seems completely nerve wracking for me to go up there for 5 to 15 minutes to an hour even by myself the whole time. When I did the very first live version of this show and we decided that it was going to be in the format of late night, I did ended up being like a 15-minute monologue, which was way too long. And my co-host, my Andy Richter, I barely included him in it, and it felt very awkward. I was told that it wasn't that bad, but it felt very bad. It proved to me that stand-up is not my strong suit, and I should gravitate towards something that's more closer to improv, which is me BSing with my friends upstage for 10 minutes before we kick into the real show.
Yeah, that's a luxury, is having with improv is somebody else is there, because that also takes so much pressure off. And that's, I think I want to pursue stand up in some way, just so I can say that I did it, and also figure out if that is something that I want to do. Because I've always been drawn to it, and I really want to try it. But I'm not dumb. I know I'm the only one up there, all eyes on me, and hey dude, don't F this up. And so, yeah, I totally agree with you that is a bit of a safety net with improv, is whether it's one person or 4 people, you have somebody else there who is feeding off of, you have no idea what you're going to do. Just say poop and they will come back with something. And then you're just bouncing right back off of them. And before you know, like, there's no pressure, and you're just dicking around with your friend up there.
Yeah.
And by the way, these people are thinking it's hilarious. That's that's what it can turn out to be. So I hope that for you, scheduling opens up to where you can try it. 'Cause I can't recommend it enough, just for people. Maybe if people don't even want to like try and, I don't even want to try and make it big or anything like that. It's like, it's just very revealing of yourself, and it really helps you, just kind of helps anybody come out of their shell. I've never been shy or to come out of my shell or be on the spot or anything. That doesn't bother me. But there are just other people that I know, I'm like, oh, take improv. You won't regret it. And it's just a great feeling to do.
Well, and that, I mean, that's me. Despite how you and I have been talking for a while, like I am the shy kid to, probably the shyest person you'd ever meet. Super shy. I'm that stereotypical like personality entertainer that, can turn it on in certain situations, but behind when the mic's off or whatever, I'm like whole different person where I'm just like, excuse me, may I have a cheeseburger? Uh, and I've heard the same thing. Like I've talked to a handful of people who do improv. Obviously you, James D'Amato from the One Shot Podcast Network, Hal Lublin, who does the We Got This podcast, and a few others. And like the common thread is like, you got to do it at least once. You got to take the class. You got to try it. And it's even like you said, it sounds like not just to see if it's something you want to do, more so than it's a great tool that transcends just comedy.
Yeah.
It's something that, wrestling is very, and maybe not, I don't know about wrestling in 2017. It seems like, from what I understand from people that still watch it, it's a little bit more scripted and whatnot. But at the end of the day, wrestling, like good wrestling, is heavily influenced by improv and podcasting, especially if you're going to do something like tabletop actual play podcasts like One Shot and Party One does. That improv tool for playing those games is tremendous.
Well, and as corny as it sounds, it's like everybody improvises in their life every single day.
Yeah.
So it's an exercise in just thinking on your feet. If like it's a break it down, like that's the less comical, and that's not as fun of an approach to it. But excuse me, but when it comes down to it, it does help you think faster, and everybody's got to, shit doesn't go the way you expect every single day. So hey, sometimes you're gonna have to think quick. It's an exercise.
Yeah.
But I'd rather say I like to make people laugh. That's why I take it.
Yeah, and that's, I would say, like, I don't even know if I want to pursue like doing stage stuff. I would totally want to if the opportunity arose and I had time to and whatnot. But I think it's a skill set that would improve this show, improve, more importantly, my live shows, is where I think that practice, because then I'm actually, performing in front of a crowd. Not that the people listening to this episode right now, not that they don't matter, they totally do, but like, I don't have to see their reactions to this. I just assume that when they listen to a normal episode of Everything is Awesome, they love it. They're crying, they're laughing. All the emotions, I assume, are happening when they listen to the show. But when
they're bawling right now, like, oh my gosh, you two, you're helping us with life.
Exactly. I just assume that's what happens. The only feeling they don't feel is anger, unless we're talking about something that we all hate.
Hitler.
But the live shows,
there's anger. Hitler. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I feel like we ran the gambit of emotions on this episode.
Pretty much. And are you in Philadelphia?
I'm outside of Philly. I'm in the suburbs, Bucks County. We are, when you go to awesomepodcast.com, we are, we put on Front Street, the number one podcast in Bucks County. I put that disclaimer up there. I don't know if it's a disclaimer, but I put that bragging right up there before I knew of the several other podcasts that are in Bucks County that I've discovered. But I still take claim to being the number one because I said it first. And
I'm looking at it right now. The number one podcast in Bucks County.
That's right. And so I'm outside of the city, but and which is like another reason why like it's hard to get down there to do the classes, because it's at least a 45-minute drive. I feel like I would do this show live a lot more often if I was closer to the city, because there's more opportunities to put on a free show down in the city than there is in Bucks County. I have every opportunity. The reason we haven't done a live show since the Philadelphia Podcast Festival back in July is because we were trying to line up two shows in Bucks County over the fall season, and they both fell through, and just we couldn't get anything else to work in that time frame. So it's a lot harder to like do this show live in my true local city. So I have to travel about an hour to do the show live. So we try to do like 6 a year is my goal. And after this show that we do on, that we already did on the 17th, that will be our 5th show for the year. So we almost hit our goal this year in 2017, but, and we'll hit it in 2018, I'm sure. But so we're not in the city, just outside of. It's a short distance.
I didn't know as far as in Philadelphia or surrounding area if you knew what like the improv scene, I guess, so to speak, is. If there's a lot of availability for you to take classes and shows.
In Philly, there is, and I actually, one of the everyone that's a player on the 100th episode of Everything Is Awesome is an improv comedian, except for Garrett, who he's done stand up. He's taken a step aside from it because his schedule was way too crazy for it and whatnot. So he doesn't do improv, but he does stand up. He's a funny guy. I'm literally the only one. Me and Jeff are the only two that aren't like formally trained in improv. But he's got that mindset because he's played these and GM'd these type of games for years. I'm literally probably the most green person when it comes to any kind of funny bits or improv when it comes to like what we're going to do on the 17th. But there's plenty of opportunities. The guy, Joe Gates, I asked, because he was like the only improv guy at the time that I had booked. I was like, hey man, like you're the only one that I know that does improv in the city. Like, is there like anyone that you can ask? And it's a huge scene, comedy in general, but even improv. There are plenty of comedy clubs that are dedicated to teaching some form of comedy, whether it's stand-up or improv. Philadelphia FIT is the Philadelphia Improv Theater is like our big one. That's where a lot of people go, and then they eventually move on to the UCB in New York?
Yeah, Upright Citizens Brigade.
Yeah. They move up to there, or they move up to Second City in Chicago, are like the two places that like people who take it seriously and graduate from FIT, they eventually move up to New York or Chicago. Before I let you go, because the time is flying by, we're going to go a little longer because I wanted to talk about you also writing for Dark Knight News, which I know when I talked to Adam on the show, I feel like it's going to be kind of a reverse situation where it sounds like, from what I remember, he got into it because of writing and like a moderate love of Batman. Whereas my question is, what brought you to Dark Knight News? Like, what brought you to writing? It sounds like Batman may have brought you to writing.
Yeah. Batman, he called to me. He lit up the signal and I flew to Dark Knight News on the internet. But actually,
you lit up the signal with your silhouette.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, wow, that looks like me. I need to do this. And I'm just a nerd. As long as I can remember, I have bled the Dark Knight. And I enjoy writing. It is so hard for me to write without an objective or a destination or a goal. I can't just, hey, I'll just write this and this and this. It's like I like to write, but I by the end, it needs to be for something. And I'm like, oh, if I could just write. Now, this is long before I got paid to write about Batman. And I just looked online because where can I just get into writing about Batman? And I don't know how in the world I came across Dark Knight News. That's not putting it down or anything. It's just one of those things. There I was on it, and it said that they were looking for writers. And I had just started. No, I'd been working as a news producer at my last TV job for about a year or so at this time. So there was a different editor in charge at that point, and it just said, I just wrote an email and just said, I'm interested. I'd like to do this. And I said, well, great. Just send us a writing sample. And I did. And I told them my background and what I was doing at the time. And so they said, sure. And I've just, any moment that I had over the past couple of years, I'd contributed for my days of writing and then extras. And Adam and the other editor for the site, Kevin, KG.
KG1.
That's right, KG1. They really wanted to, in a sense, give me more. With great power comes great responsibility. So they
Yeah.
kind of asked if I'd be interested in kind of overseeing all the review angles for the website. And I said gladly, because that's what I love, the sharing of opinions, because it always interests me that, for example, you and I, Kevin, could read or watch or listen to the same thing and have completely different reactions and emotions afterward. And so it's like, sweet, this is what I thought, this. And you say, well, I actually thought this. And it's just very opening. It's discussion. And, it sounds like cheesy and corny, but there's some things that I could have missed that you didn't miss. And I'm like, that's interesting.
Yeah.
And that can make me appreciate it more. So I feel like that's what reviews should do. And so the fact that they allowed me to oversee that in mainly Batman comics, just because there's so many comics that it's always new and fresh. Whereas like now, next Batman movie, who knows the next time that we're going to see one? But you can guarantee tomorrow we're going to see Batman in comics. Oh, and the next Wednesday, more Batman comics. So it's very heavy on the comics angle. But anytime that there's a show or a movie or anything, we try to cover that as well.
Yeah, and I loved when I was part of the team and you would do those like those group discussions about your favorite Batman, your favorite Batman movie, your favorite. I don't think we got to this. Well, we tried to do the score, but
yeah, nobody knew what I was talking about, and I was like, oh, well, that's on me then.
It's that one was like for me because music is such, even though it's the most like oftentimes the most important part of a movie, it is the part that I pay attention to the least, even though subconsciously I'm probably paying attention to it the most. That like off the top of my head I was like, oh god, I would have to put like a day's worth of listening to music to properly do this, and I just never got to it and whatnot. But yeah, and going back to like what you said about having a structure to write for, it's I have because my game plan after I had left Dark Knight News, spoilers for anyone that's listening, I think we discussed this on the Roundtable episode that you fired me.
You got fired.
But I was like, all right, well, I'm gonna keep on reviewing my issues that I was reviewing for Dark Knight News. I'll just review them for That's Entertainment, which is like the parent website to this podcast. And when I'm in charge and I have a novel that I've been working on for years that was for a different set of books at one point that my buddy created, but he changed directions of what he was doing, so I had to reformat it to do my own thing. But again, like once it's on me and I'm like, all right, I want to do this, it just sits there. And like Batman or Batgirl issue 17, I was waiting for Wednesday for it to come out. I was like, all right, I got it, I read it, and I've yet to write the review because I don't have like, there's no obligation. I'm the only person I'm going to disappoint on that's entertainment.com or thatentertains.com is myself. So it's something that I'm like, all right, tonight's the night. And then I sit down, I get ready to do it. And then I fall asleep and don't write the review. I'm hoping that after I get off with you, I'm going to finally write that review because I need to pick up Dark Knight's Metal next week and continue my reviews there. But yeah, I loved not that you didn't do the roundtables. That was Eric that did that. But when, the ones that you participated in, I loved like that back and forth between the three or four of us doing just talking about our thoughts on whatever we were roundtabling.
Yeah, and it was really fun. So you and I, obviously, we were participating in it at the time, but then it was fun once Eric put it all together and to just go back and reread it because it read so fast, and I think you very quickly, like you just said, that back and forth. It was just. I was hearing that our conversation again of just bam, bam, bam. And it just read so easy and it was fun. Except like I told you, the last one that we did, where we also did it with the the man, as I call him, Steve J. Ray from England, across the pond.
Yes.
Of
Chip Chip Cheerio.
yeah, he. I wasn't enthusiastic about it, and Scott Snyder himself looked at it, and I think I kind of pissed him off. And I wasn't trying to. I wasn't trying to, and I could be totally, because that's a problem too. If you only read something through text, you have no idea how that was said, the real meaning behind everything. I just felt like not that I stepped over. I don't want to offend or piss off anybody that has worked hard to get something printed or released, because they have taken so many further steps than anybody else does. The fact that something even gets released is a huge accomplishment. And so it's like, great, I'm not going to shit on that. This issue itself, though, kind of pissed me off because I've been in it and I've been spending all this money, and this issue just went bananas. And I just didn't like it. And then he didn't like that I didn't like it. And I was like, oh, but I could have been really harsh on this. And I thought that in our little discussion that I was actually kind of light on it.
I remember, you and I talking about this. I think when we did our like test for the Roundtable, is when we talked about this tweet that he sent you, or DM or whatever. And like, in the moment, I don't even think any of us were that critical of it, even you. And then rereading it when it was, because Eric did a great job of like kind of rearranging the conversation where it needed to be rearranged because of lag or people typing faster than others or whatever. The conversation is always a little out of order in those text roundtables. And so rereading it and reading it 100% in context, I'm like, I don't recall anything being incredibly harsh. I know that I want to say, if anything, I think you and I were the two quote unquote harshest of it. Yeah. With you liking it less than I did. But yeah, that's incredible to me that whether he just took your tweet and based it off that, or he actually read the article. Like, I don't know what he saw that was too quote unquote too harsh or whatever.
Scott Snyder, if you're listening to this, let me go ahead and tell you, I didn't really care for that issue, but you can bet that the next thing that you write, I'm going to be right there first day buying it, because that's what I do with all of your stuff. I've got it all on the bookshelf sitting right behind me. Batman or not Batman, I love that guy's stuff, and he's never done anything bad. Some stuff I like less than others, but the guy's great. It's just with this one, I'm like, it's just not my cup of tea. So no hard feelings there, Scott.
Yeah. I would say, Scott Snyder's probably my favorite writer in comics, though. Frank Thierry, is that how you pronounce his last name?
Oh yeah, Tieri. I'll just spell it for you. Frank Tieri.
Yeah, he is slowly becoming like that guy for me. I've only read the stuff that he's done for Metal, but like, and he did two of the one shots, and they coincidentally were like two of my favorites of the Nightmare Batman. I think the only one that outdid it was the Joker one that Tyrion the Fourth did, I believe.
Tynan, yeah,
not Tyrion. Not Tyrion. That's a whole.
Tyrion Lannister wrote that one.
But yeah, Frank Thierry, I think is Thierry or whatever. I apologize, Frankie Poo. I don't know how to pronounce
Tieri. No offense, Frank. I know you're listening.
Yeah. But he seems like he could be like a good like a guy to keep your eye on, and like another Scott Snyder type, like he was just a really good writer.
Yeah, and I think that's a strength too, ever since Snyder, like I guess you could call it his posse, by constantly following everything that he's done, he's just introduced me to all these other writers and artists who are now becoming like Sean Murphy. I heard about Sean Murphy because of Scott Snyder. And so look what he's doing now. And Tynan was also another one. And then Raphael Albuquerque, because him and Raphael Albuquerque did the American Vampire stuff for Vertigo. Vertigo Comics, and that was my introduction to Scott Snyder, and then also artist of Jock and Francesco Francavilla when they did their detective run. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to take this on a totally nerdy comic discussion.
No.
It's just like the guy's talented, and he's got his own group, his own talents that he's sought out, and now they are becoming top of the line people. And I don't know if Thierry is one also or not. If he's one of his discoveries, or
I don't know, but I know like when at New York Comic Con, I believe when they had like the Batman panel and the DC Metal / New Heroes or whatever they're calling it panel. I think Frank was part of both, like the Batman guys, the quote unquote Batman / metal guys were all part of that. And, or at least Frank and James, how do you pronounce his last name? The fourth.
Tynan.
The fourth is one of Tynan the fourth. I know them two and Scott were involved in all three at the bare minimum. So I feel like there's a little click there that Scott Slater has that I totally dig. I think I dig them, practically all of them. Something that like that I really fell in love with during my time at Dark Knight News was the Batgirl run that like I chose based off the fact that well everything else is taken, so I guess I'll read Batgirl.
Yeah. Okay.
And I went back like as I don't know if this is what a good reviewer does, but I went back to issue 1 because it was still only like 15 issues in by the time I started reviewing it. So I started from the beginning and caught myself up. And it started off like it just started off as like, oh god, this is literally a teen girl show that I'm reading, and then it slowly developed into like a CW show that I would watch, and to the point where like I can't praise Hope Larson and Chris Wildgoose enough on their work on that comic. Like it's so good. There's no reason that they should not have her write an episode of Supergirl and introduce Batgirl on it.
Why not?
I don't know if you read the annual from last year with Batgirl, but it was her and Supergirl teaming up to free someone out of, I believe it was Arkham, or maybe it wasn't. I don't think it was Arkham. I forget what it was, but Supergirl, like someone was calling out to Supergirl, and she needed Batgirl's brains to help break this person out. And like just the idea of seeing them two team up like is brilliant, and having Supergirl in on the CW and in the world where we can see a live action version of, like I understand we're getting a live action movie, but we've already established that you could have two Flashes.
Are we getting a live action movie though? Give her to the CW. Give her to the CW. I just feel like once Superman ended up on Supergirl, I think minus Wonder Woman and Batman, everything else is fair game. And why can't Batgirl just be on it?
Yeah.
Make her work. Give her an episode. That's all.
I don't even need a full series that is just Batgirl. Like I can understand if you don't want to do that. I think it would work, but I think that just like, you know, you have all these different heroes on Team Flash and on Team Arrow, and I know you have your own little Team Supergirl already at the DEO, but there's no reason that you can't have Batgirl, you know, be in at least a couple episode arc. If not, just like you said, one episode I'd be fine with, but I totally love the idea. I think that Hope Larson's style of writing and Wild Goose's style of art, like it reminds me of the CW shows. It feels like it would fit into that Supergirl world even. And I think what helps this season at the very least is that Batgirl is like way more, I would say, brighter and chipper than Batman is.
Yeah.
And though there's still some dark moments and whatnot, and Supergirl this season, while it's still a brighter show compared to say Arrow, it is in its she's in her broody, quote unquote broody arc right now. So she's a little bit darker. I think it's like a perfect time to introduce this character into the Supergirl mythos, which I believe she already exists because we've already Supergirl and the Berlantiverse has confirmed that her cousin has worked with a masked vigilante before, and there's no way she doesn't mean Batman. So I don't know. I don't see why they don't do it. It just makes sense.
Yeah, maybe.
So officially, before we let you go, you kind of started off when we talked about you being on the other podcast about how you were talking the year of Batman and how it's been. So in I know you guys probably went on for at least an hour or so about it, but in the briefest amount of time that you can, what are your thoughts on Batman in the year 2017?
I think he has the best comics of the entire year, of the whole medium of comics. I think you have Batman at the top because Tom King has been writing the Batman title, and all year long from January till now it has soared. In Detective, Tynan, your boy, Tyrion over there, everybody's just fallen in love with his title, and that's been great. Speaking of our boy Scott Snyder, he ended his run of All-Star Batman, which was really good. Sean Murphy has launched 3 issues of Batman White Knight, which is my favorite series of the year. That book is incredible. And then
I need to read issue 3 still, but the concept of that book from the get-go is like, all right, first of all, you're making Jack Napier canon of sorts.
Yeah.
I'm in on that. I love this idea of like flip-flopping what they are. So I can't read. I'm probably gonna read the 3rd issue tonight.
Do it. And then also, let's see, got Metal, which that's a Batman story. And then just came out last week was the first issue of the Batman Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2 series. Great.
Yeah,
it's
and
wonderful.
I want to read that. I didn't read it. And are you reviewing that? Did I see?
Yes, sir.
Now, do you need to have read the first set?
It is
in
not
order to hop
required.
in?
It's not required. They just briefly have announced in that first one, like a comment about the last series, the run. But I mean, you get it.
I mean, it's Batman and the Turtles.
Exactly. Which the first run of that was awesome. And then they did a great so they did this run, and I think it was, I don't know who owns the Turtles, IDW maybe.
Well, I think who owns them?
Well,
I think Nickelodeon
does.
owns them. Yeah, but IDW does do the comics.
Okay. So it's kind of a joint deal between the two, and that first run with Tynan, and then his name's Freddie Williams, the second, does the art. That was more of like a DC sale. Well, then they launched a second series. I don't remember who did. Oh, Matthew Manning was on that one, and it was awesome because it combined Batman the Animated Series with the current cartoons of the Turtles.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, and like it's arguable, but I think I liked that one a little bit more just because you throw Batman the Animated Series in there and you've got me.
Yeah. Even though I love Keaton and I will always consider Batman 89 to be like my Batman, the really as a kid, like I know I watched Batman 89 as a kid, but what I remember stand out as a kid is the animated series.
Yeah.
And Conroy is, he should be thrown into every discussion about Batman because he might be the most legitimate.
Yeah, he is the voice. And that one, let's see. So that book was great, but sticking to this year. So yeah, I've just named like 6 Batman series, and that's not even everything that Batman's been in, and all of them have been good. And I will even say Metal. Yeah. Like good. It's just not, it's turning toward kind of not for me, but in no way will I say that it's not fun. Like it's stressful. Mm-hmm. Like that last issue was a little stressful, but it's still worth reading if that's kind of your thing. So it's not a bad book. Let's put it that way. It's not a bad book. So I don't know any other character in comics that has been in so much and kind of fit any style really.
Yeah.
Because each book is different too, which is also kind of crazy that he can appear in so many and each one's different, and yet he fits in every single one too. And I think that's just kind of what makes Batman Batman. And so there's just no other bankable character like him in comics, I don't think.
Now, what are your thoughts? Because this is the latest news about the movie verse, the DCEU, is that the WB wants to go in a whole nother direction. They're going to change the leadership, and that it sounds like that Ben Affleck as Batman is going to appear in something, The Flash, I guess, Flashpoint, and that Matt Reeves is going to. It sounds like it's a pretty strong possibility he will be recast for the Batman movie.
I think that they need to do it.
Oh, interesting. Hot take.
Yeah, watch out. I loved Affleck in Batman vs Superman. I thought, and it got me really excited for a solo movie because since he directed The Town, I thought if this guy can do a Batman movie in a similar style as The Town, like that would be a great follow up to like Nolan's Dark Knight trilogy. But Affleck's just kind of like it just seems off. And with his performance in Justice League, it was all right, but somehow he got me more leaning towards, all right, that's your last time as Batman. Let's get somebody else in here. Let's kind of get I like Batman Solo. So if Matt Reeves is planning on doing more than one movie, which always surprises me that they keep saying that one, they keep calling Matt Reeves' movie The Batman, when Ben Affleck called it The Batman, I guess, when he was still writing and directing it. And since they've dropped him from writing and directing and hired Matt Reeves, so why is everybody still saying that it's called The Batman? I don't get it. And if Reeves wants to do his own trilogy, like Affleck can't stick around doing it for another decade. He's limited in a sense of the types of stories that he could tell by having Affleck. I think, just kind of cut the cord. I don't think they really need to worry about trying to make it make sense for him to leave, because is the general audience going to care? Like, not, I don't know that they will. Oh, another Batman? Okay. Because there's, I think as it showed with Justice League, like there isn't as big of a mainstream audience really following and caring. So it's kind of like you can just sort of reboot that section and just get a new Batman and Bruce Wayne, and Matt Reeves can go on his own little island and create his own Gotham and just have his own world.
Well, it almost sounds like, I don't know. It almost sounds like that's might be what they're doing, is like they're not going to go for the combined universe thing. And who knows? Maybe I'm way off key here, but just from that last article that I read from, I forget who it was,
Variety.
But yeah. It just sounds like that they're, save for Aquaman, which is already filmed, it sounds like they're kind of going to go back to the way comic book movies used to be, where they were solo movies and that's it. Which, I think there's an argument for where that's a better, it could be a better storytelling play, because you don't have to build to the team up like Marvel does. But I don't know. I feel the opposite. I feel like that in both Batman versus Superman, which I was not a huge fan of, Justice League, I enjoyed. I think I would say almost like that, and Avengers seemed like it was pretty equal to me as far as comparing the two team up movies. Like I don't think I can necessarily point out. I would say maybe. See, I on the Roundtable, it was hard to express this too. I think maybe Avengers felt better because they were able to build up to it after like a few years of building up the heroes in solo movies. And I think that was always DC's mistake of not doing it the Marvel. I know they didn't want to do it the Marvel way because they wanted to, be different. But there's a reason the Marvel way works, is that we had several years in movies to care about all these characters and then see them meet in a team up movie. Whereas Justice League, we kind of got force fed them to be teamed up.
It always surprised me because the word was that, or that you read, was that Warner Brothers was really trying to hurry and get to that Avengers type deal with DC characters and getting that $1 billion movie. And I thought, well, hold on. You just had The Dark Knight and Dark Knight Rises each make $1 billion. And it was just one hero. So you were already getting your $1 billion movies. Why were you pushing to try and get more $1 billion movies, but in a different way? And plus, by having each movie feature a superhero standalone, that's how you were different from that Marvel formula. And you could avoid the comparisons. And by taking these missteps now, it's almost like, oh yeah, they tried and failed. That could almost be like the mindset. Now, I also understand that it's only like us nerds that are saying that and really believe in that. And you could talk to a group of mainstream moviegoers that are just like, what the hell are you talking about? Yeah, I saw Justice League. It was fun. The end. Like, that's the end of the discussion and stuff too. So I think just don't, from like a filmmaking perspective, don't restrict an artist. Let them do what they want to do and just let it be. Like, it seems like with the Aquaman movie with James Wan, he's signed on. He was kind of just given the keys to Atlantis, and he just went away and made his movie. And everything that has come out about that movie, granted, it's not much, but when you go for Wan's been signed as director, and then Momoa is going to be the lead, and then Amber Heard's going to play Mira, and then pictures come out. It just seems like universally, there's not much that people in this country can come together on these days. But Aquaman, everybody seems to like everything that's being talked about with that movie. It just seems like everything's clicking with it.
Say that 10 years ago, and people are going to say, what kind of joke are you talking about, Future Man?
What? It's like, oh no, that guy, Vinny Chase. No, there's going to be this dude that looks like he ate Vinny Chase, and he's playing Aquaman, okay?
I don't know. I feel like that Ben Affleck was like the high points to both those team up movies, like Batman versus Superman and Justice League. And I don't know. I've always been a fan of Ben Affleck, and maybe that's my issue, is that I'm a fanboy of his, and I don't want to see him go because he feels like he's a good fit. Like he's not Keaton, but he's very close. Like he's my second favorite live action Batman. And maybe it's because of his Bruce Wayne portrayal. Like I feel like he maybe brings a little bit more humanity to the role. I don't know if I'm phrasing it right, but I don't know. I'm going to be sad to see him leave. Though I would be okay with. Here's how you get me to help you ship Ben Affleck off. You make The Batman a movie that stars Michael Keaton as an older Batman who is training Terry McGinnis. If you give me that Batman movie, I am way okay with getting rid of with Ben Affleck.
Do a little Batman Beyond action. Well, what?
I literally, before, I think it was when Batman when Ben Affleck was cast as Batman. Let me see if I can get to it before my phone dies. I have like a bunch of like random ideas of things that I wanted to write. And one of them was a Batman Beyond-esque movie that I'll give you the date that I made this note, but it was called The Batman. And my notes were stars Michael Keaton as an old Batman. And I think it was actually at the time, it was before Batman versus Superman. I think it was, I think my idea was to do it more like, damn, my phone died. to do it more like to do a real like Dark Knight Returns storyline that was a little bit more faithful to the comic book. But I also want to say that I think it was my Terry. I thought it was my Batman. I think it was like my idea to lead to a Batman Beyond movie was doing the Batman, which was going to be, taking parts of the Dark Knight Returns and making that work better than it did in Batman versus Superman. And then leading that to Terry McGinnis and Batman Beyond. So that's how you get me to win over getting rid of Ben Affleck, is bring Michael Keaton back as Batman.
Listen, and if he were to come back for another movie, I wouldn't have any issues with it or anything like that, because Matt Reeves is, he's driving the car. He's the man in charge. Yeah. And so it's just whatever he decides. And I mean, like, it's up to me anyways. I'm going to see that movie, whatever it is, whenever it comes out. I'll be there first day. So it's like, if he feels like Affleck is the man for it, then it's like, all right, there's kind of no hesitancy on my part from it. I would have rather my hype level for Affleck still been where it was even a year ago, but it's not. So whatever happens, happens.
All right. Well, we've hit the time where I'm starting to get sleepy.
So sorry.
No, it's fine. It's fine. It's the East Coast in me. It's almost midnight here. Yeah. We've talked a lot about Batman. We've hit a lot of the notes that I planned on hitting tonight. So I'm happy. I'm so excited that we finally got you on. We've been working, I want to say, for the last like month and a half, we've been talking about getting you on.
Yeah. It just took me finally getting a podcast mic.
Yeah. You're in, like, you need to start doing things on the regular now. You need to start guesting everywhere you can go. You're an official Dark Knight of the Round Table. So hopefully, when we do another one of those, you'll be available for that. Though I told Craig, he was from the Take Two podcast that was part of the Dark Knight Roundtable discussion on Justice League. He lives in I think it's Maryland is where they live. So not too far from here. And he might be the closest person that lives to me. I said, I just applied to do a panel at Wizard World Philly for the Dark Knights of the Round Table discussing Infinity War. And then I also said to Wizard World, if you want to book us every day of the con, we can totally find 3 other subjects to make each show different. So open invite for you to come to Philadelphia in whenever Wizard World Philly is. I think it's in May, I think.
All right.
So
it's just a little drive. Just a little drive. No big deal.
Hey, you know what? I used to travel for work, and we'll end on this note, I guess. I used to travel for work. I've been to over half the country for that job. And at one point I got snowed in Indianapolis at the airport. And I was probably drunk at the airport because delays. I just drink on the company's dime. And so it's a little hazy. I know that there was a 95% chance that I was going to rent a car and drive home. I think maybe a flight opened up last minute and I was able to fly home. But there's a very good chance. I know that I have driven almost that distance before, from Chicago to Philly. Ooh. So it's, you know what? No, I did it. I now remember. Flight never got, I would have to wait till the next day for the flight. And I said, fuck that. Rent me a car. I will drive home and make it, and however long it took. So it's possible, my friend. I don't think you can go back and forth every day. That would be a little silly. But
no, wouldn't do that. My guess, and I will Google map this, but my guess is that it's probably a 10-hour drive.
I think it's longer if I remember. I think it's like a 12-hour drive. I don't know. That's discussions for future Kevin Ryan.
That's right.
But there's an open invite if you can get out to Philadelphia, and we are we do we are accepted to do the con. There's the original Dark Knights of the Roundtable get first bite at the apple if they can make it out on your own dime. Of course, unless Was the World is paying, I'm not paying.
Yeah, I understand. And by the way, 11 hours 37 minutes.
There you go. So my guesstimate was right.
Yep.
You can shave off an hour and a half though.
Yeah,
Easily.
easy.
I mean, think about this. That's literally you just going from from Fort Wayne, was it, to Chicago and back, and then back to Chicago again.
Yeah.
That's all it is.
Done. No problem.
All it is. All right. Before we officially let you go, Ryan, why don't you give out some plugs where people can find you?
Ooh. People can find me on the Twitter at Lauer_Ryan, and Lauer is spelled like lower, Lower. And I warned on your show the last time I was on, I'm still kind of figuring out Twitter, so it is all Batman basically on that.
Which is nothing wrong with that.
No, not at all. With some other things sprinkled here and there, but I try to keep it fun. I'm not that sassy yet. I want to be, so that it can be a little funnier. I need to work on some improv skills through the Twitter, which they don't have those classes at Second City of improv for social media, but we'll work on that. And yeah,
you could be the founder of that class.
Maybe. Hey, everybody, let's just get on Twitter and just be shitty to each other for an hour and a half. I like it.
There you go.
And on, as you mentioned, darkknightnews.com, a lot of good people writing some fun stuff on there. So if you're a fan of Batman, it's a fun site to check in on at least once a day.
Yeah, no, it is. I enjoyed reading the site before I wrote there, and I enjoyed being part of that site when I was, and I still there's a select few writers that I make sure I follow on darkknightnews.com, and you'll be happy to know you're one of them. So,
and as you mentioned, and then this will be the last thing, you liked like me doing our favorite Batman, our favorite movies. I got to say, those have been like, I think, my favorite things that I've done too, because and it's not even a ton of work. It's just me asking everybody, hey, give me your favorites, give me your ranking, and then I'll just organize it and put it together. But it's just really fun reading everybody's comments and then putting them in the order and everything. And and then going back through, much like with Eric's commentary for the metal stuff, just going back through and reading it just reads really fun. The work putting it, like every step of that process was just fun. So I'm pretty excited. I've got one that I'm working on to do by the end of the year, and it's more comic based, because I think we'll probably get more attention by sticking towards movies, because there's more fans of movies than comics, but we still get people looking at the comic stuff. But basically just picking out everybody's favorite comic book issue of the year, and I'm going to put one of those together. Not like favorite book, but issue, like one issue.
Yeah.
So just to make it a little more fun. Yeah.
That's, if you would have asked me, circa New 52, when Scott Snyder first took over, whatever year that was, issue 5 of Court of the Owls is still to this day my favorite issue of any comic book.
You mean where you opened up and you're like, they screwed up the printing?
Yeah.
That issue.
Yeah. Yeah, where you're like, you read and a couple pages in, you're like, what the fuck?
Yeah. God damn it! How can they do this?
And then as you turn the page, you realize you bought in. You got had.
Yep.
You were taken. Capullo got you.
Well played, Capullo. You did it. You tricky bastard.
There's so many possible names for this episode, including the two that are sticking out in my mind are Scott Snyder, I know you listen, and Damn You Capullo are the two titles I got going.
Damn
for
You
this
Capullo,
episode,
or what's his name? Tyrion?
Tyrion.
Tyrion wrote that Batman comic.
There's so many possibilities.
Yeah, have fun with that one.
I think I want to go with the Scott Snyder one to see if he listens.
Yeah, let's tweet it right at him too. Why not? I'll redeem myself.
Hey, in all seriousness, he is. I think he's still, as of now, like my favorite writer in comics. Though his crop of guys are like all right there behind him, like they are creeping up on him, like you said. He did good, like assembling that his Bat family, I guess.
Yeah, I can't disagree. Like you say, Scott Snyder is writing. I'm like, all right, I'm there. Tell me where I can find it.
Yep. I am sad that his time with the character is almost at an end.
Yeah.
After I forget what's the run called that he's going to end with.
See, I thought that
remember?
one, that's not White Knight because that's what Sean Murphy's doing, but it's something along those
No.
lines.
Lost Night. I think it's
Yep,
Lost Night.
That's it.
No, is it Lost
Yeah,
Night?
I think that's it.
Is that? Yep. So it's so I'm excited to read that, but a little sad though. I think he even said that it's not necessarily the end. It's just he's taking his direction elsewhere for a little while.
Yep. Sad.
So. All right, Ryan. Well, thank you once again for being on the show. You'll definitely be back. You are my go-to guy for Dark Knight roundtables and anything Batman related.
Thank you, Kevin. I appreciate it. This has been a blast.
Yes. And hopefully you get to do more of these in the future. Maybe you start one of your own. I'm always a big fan of people starting their own podcasts. So maybe you do. I highly recommend it. For Everything is Awesome, I am Kev. You can find us on facebook.com/realawesomepod. That is where we sit around and talk about all of our live shows. That's where I usually announce them first. So it's a good place to follow us, facebook.com/realawesomepod. At the time that you're listening to this, we've already recorded our 100th episode at a Malcolm Comics and Coffee House, but you get to see us live at least one more time. But after 2017. In 2018, on January 28th, 2018, we will be performing live as part of the second annual Everything is Awesome Let's F Cancer Podiversary show. It is a one-day festival where I gather a few of my friends who do podcasts, and we sit around and we perform live. It's a preview of what you can see at the Philadelphia Podcast Festival in June in 2018. And it's also a great place and great time for us to try to raise money for the organization Let's F Cancer at letsfcancer.com. It's a show that I put together in dedication to my uncle, who we lost just over a year ago to cancer. So if you can come out, you'll see more information about that on Facebook in the coming days, or maybe it's already there by the time this releases. But that will be the next time you can see us live, January 28th. 2018 at Tattooed Moms in Philadelphia from 1 p.m. to 7 p.m. I believe is the festival hours. So I hope to see you there. You can also follow us on Twitter at Real Awesome Pod, and you can find us on all the things. But I mainly tweet from at That Nerdy Kev, so check me there. And of course, we're on the Core Temp Arts podcast network at coretemparts.com. And we are on so many goddamn plugs. Awesomepodcast.com. That's it. I'm tired, guys. For Everything is Awesome, I'm Kev. We've been awesome.
Thank you for listening to the Core Temp Arts Podcast Network. To listen to more Core Temp Arts shows, visit coretemparts.com.